All right, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy clearly touched a big nerve on the left when he announced the beginning of an impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Yesterday, the Democrats, they did not take it very well. This is shocking. Take a look.
Extreme MAGA Republicans have launched an illegitimate impeachment inquiry that is a kangaroo court, fishing expedition, and conspiracy theater rolled into one. There is not a shred of evidence that President Joe Biden has engaged in wrongdoing.
But it's an interesting fact. The murder capital of California is Kevin McCarthy's district. It's the murder capital of California consistently, year in, year out. I just think that's interesting. I mean, give me a break. This is student government.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy joins us right now. Mr. Speaker, how are you?
You're welcome.
Well, we've been following this story very closely. I can give you chapter, verse, and detail, but you know it as well as I do. And yet they just claim that there's no evidence at all. Is it normal for a vice president? We know in October 2015, it became official Obama administration policy that Ukraine had made enough progress on the issue of corruption that they, through an interagency agreement, agreed that it was time to give them $1 billion in loan guarantees. Okay. It was Joe Biden's job to give that to them. 5 days before his trip to Ukraine, he got on the phone with Burisma executives and his son Hunter at a time that Burisma executives were saying and begging they needed help. They needed help in D.C. help. And anyway, 5 days later, he goes to Ukraine. That's when he leveraged $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars, demanding a prosecutor get fired. And as a result of that decision, his son continued to get paid for a job in which he admits he had no experience, and he got paid a fortune. And we're talking about tens of millions of dollars, never mind the shell corporations, never mind the grandkids getting paid. So no evidence? That sounds like a lot of evidence to me.
That's just some. The other part you didn't put, the money that he got for Hunter Biden being on the board, he never declared it. But what did the Biden administration do, the DOJ? They let the statute of limitations run out with the IRS, which the IRS would never allow you to do. You know, remember why Hunter Biden, what he told why he's on that board. He said he had no experience. He was there because it was part of the Biden brand. You know, you can tell exactly what's happening at the White House. The Bidens have given the marching orders to the media. They know that they do not want to provide the information to the American people, and the American people deserve it. That is exactly why I did impeachment inquiry. It empowers Congress, from the Republicans and Democrats, to be able to get the answers to all these questions. From the informant that told the FBI that he alleges that there was a bribe to the Biden family, to when you find that he used different names in emails, where he actually talked with his own office, sending to Hunter Biden as well, about Ukraine. Then when you look at when he told the American public he never had any dealings with his son or talked about in this business, but he goes to meetings. Think for one moment, did he know when he went to dinner his son would get a new Porsche? Did he know when he went back to Cafe Milano for another dinner, more than $3 million would go to another shell company? These are all questions that deserve to be answered.
And we got to remember, Mr. Speaker, he said over and over again, not one time, never did he ever talk to his son Hunter or his brother or anybody for that matter. Said it as a candidate multiple times, as president multiple times, about their foreign business dealings. And yet, you're right. He's meeting with Russian oligarch and Kazakhstan oligarchs. He's on, according to Devin Archer, 20 calls. They talk about the Biden brand. I don't think the Biden brand was Hunter. Do you believe that we're looking at potentially, then Vice President, now President Biden, was involved in quid pro quo, this for that, bribery, and with the shell corporations? Do you see that potentially as money laundering?
Look, there are allegations out there. Our role, there are enough allegations. The president has changed what he has told the American public. So what we believe is you see a culture of corruption. We are going to get the answers to these questions. I think the president should want to help us. If I was accused of this, I would want to come forward. Remember, no one would know of any of this information had the Republicans not taken the majority. And remember what else we found out. You know, we found out now that he actually has a staffer that worked in the White House that actually went back to Hunter Biden's workers and said the president has approved the talking points on Burisma. How can you do that if you've never talked to your son about it? You've watched he used his own administration, the DOJ, to treat his son differently. Remember these IRS agents who came forward. Well, you know what? When they talk about the phone call where Weiss actually told them that he couldn't, that he had to go higher up, that he couldn't be the special prosecutor, that he couldn't prosecute. Well, now you have the Attorney General in a box who told the American public in Congress something different. We need to know who lied in this situation, because there have been new people who've come in, and you just had Jason Smith, the Ways and Means chairman, on your show last night, who just clarified that other people actually told the same story about the IRS agents of what was said that night.
All right, we have a lot of issues. There seems to be conflict. I know Congressman Matt Gaetz has brought up the issue of possible vacating the chair issues. And I asked very specifically, what are the items that you are most concerned about? And he says he and others want individual appropriations bills, and the time is running short on that, a balanced budget vote, and a term limit vote. Are those votes coming?
Yeah, but we've been trying to do individual appropriation bills. We tried one today, but the rule wouldn't pass. And this was about defense. This was about giving our military men and women a pay raise. But it was those Republicans holding up. I don't think that's the real problem that Matt's most concerned about. Unfortunately, Matt had an ethics complaint against him in the last Congress. He thinks he can use this to try to influence. I'm never going to influence an independent committee, and I'm not going to put Swalwell back on the Intel Committee. So if he works with those two, I'm only going to work for the American public and get the answers for them.
Well, I said at the beginning that I think Republicans, you're either going to succeed together or fail together with the slim majority you have. I stand by that. Mr. Speaker, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.